right, so good morning, folks.
Morning.
Thanks for having me back. So when Jim asked me to come out and speak, I'm like, so what do you want me to talk about? And he said, just whatever. So since we had a couple of female vets, right, where are my female vets again? I was going to say, I know we had them. I thought I would put on my uniform for you today so that I just decided not to wear the jacket and everything because it is just miserably hot, as you can imagine. It's miserably hot. So a lot of people wonder, why does somebody join the military? We all have our own different reasons why you do it, especially post-Vietnam. My service is Part 1 and Part 2. So that's why you see that up here, is Colonel Paget, one of my favorite commanders I worked for, was the one who originally titled my service Part 1 and Part 2. So Part 1 was 1978 to 1986 on active duty. When I was in high school, like so many other people, you wonder, what am I going to do? What's next? Unless, of course, you were one of the lucky ones to get drafted, then you didn't have much of a choice, right? So the recruiters were in the school. We all took the ASVAB. That was just a part of life back then. And I knew a couple of people who had served, but really, other than a couple of family members, and they served a very short period of time and didn't really talk about it, uncles and grandpa. I didn't know a whole lot about it. I just knew that I loved airplanes, and I thought this would be kind of cool, right? I want to get out of this place that I'm at. I want to go do something different. And so I talked to the recruiter and delay enlistment, graduated high school, went off to basic training. After that, had to wait a little while because it took a little while to get a class date, a follow-on class date. So this is me getting fitted for my uniform. I cut my hair at that point in time because, it was so much easier in basic training not to have to deal with stray hairs and everything else. It was better just to cut it than to get yelled at all the time. So this was for fitting for our blues, and then graduation when I graduated on the 2nd of January. So I'm originally from Chicago. Joined the Air Force, see the world, right? And you'll hear why that matters in a minute. But the worst winter that we had in years in the Chicago area happened to started right about the time I left and ended right about the time I got back from basic and tech school. So I missed the whole thing, thank goodness. And I'm down at Lackland Air Force Base, and it's 80 degrees on Christmas. I'm like, wow, this is really something. I'd never been to Texas before. That was pretty interesting. So there I was. So then they sent me to my first duty station after Keesler, where I went to tech school. And where did they send me? Don't shoot 'em, Chanute 'em. And where is Chanute? Rantoul, Illinois. Champaign, Illinois. 3 hours from Chicago. So join the Air Force, see the world. I ended up 3 hours away. And I was there for 5 years. 5 years at a tech training base. And I had to ask. I had to fight to get out of there. It was quite fun. But, a lot of people say Chanute's just an awful place. A big tech training base. My first job there, I worked in the post office. Then I worked base distribution, where I ran around in the mobile distribution van that ran around base with the Holy Joes, those yellow envelopes that delivered all the official mail. I did that for a time. And then I retrained into education and training. And along the way, I was a pretty shy person. I didn't like to get up in front of people and talk. I know people like Jim and Paul find that very hard to believe. But I was, and while I was still working in the post office, when I was on maternity leave, I was a senior airman. 3 little old stripes, senior airman, and I was going to the BX, and the first sergeant caught me. And he said, "You know what I think you need? I think you need some visibility." And I said, "Nope, I don't need any visibility." Like, I'm the person that when you worked in the post office, we went in at 6:30 in the morning, and unless you were working the window or giving the postal briefing to the students, when the mail was all up, all the mailboxes were fixed, everything was done, you went home for the day. Like, I had a great tan that first summer because I was home at 11 o'clock almost every day, right? And so if it was my day to give the postal briefing, which you still got off early, it was like 2:30, 3 o'clock you got off, or you worked the window and then you got off at 5 o'clock or so. And if it was my day to give the postal briefing, I'd go to the person that was working the window and I'd say, hey, if you don't mind, would you do the postal briefing for me? I'll work the window for you. And that was how much I didn't want to get up in front of people and talk. And so the first sergeant gives me this great deal, and I said, I don't need any visibility, I'm good. I'm cool as the other side of the pillow. And he says, no, you need it, and I'm going to make you the Squadron Mobility NCO. And I'm like, not an NCO. Can't do that. And he said, I can, and I did. And so here I am, a senior airman. My assistant mobility NCO was a staff sergeant. Go figure that one out. And so I'm working this mobility program with all my personnel teams and my postal teams and legal and all that kind of stuff. And I have to brief the center commander, who happens to be a 2-star general. So now you see, I'm in a little bit of a conundrum, right? Because I don't like getting up in front of people and talking. So I had to learn really quick, get comfortable being uncomfortable. And then I started taking aerobics classes, and when the person that was teaching them, who charged, and you know, back in the late 70s, early 80s, you guys know, even then, it wasn't until the mid 80s that the pay in the military started to get better. Like, it was my first full year. I tell people, my first full year in the Air Force in 1979, I made $2,700. That was a whole year, right? And some of y'all remember when it was a whole lot less.
Oh, yeah.
But that's what families were living on, and the families could hardly afford to pay for this girl's classes. So when I went to tech school, when I came back, her husband had PCS'd, so there was no one there to teach. So being then the training manager for the headquarters squadron, who happened to own the MWR facilities, I went to the folks at MWR in the gym and I said, hey, you got a space you can give me? I'm going to teach aerobics classes for free for our folks to be able to come. And that was back in the Jane Fonda High Impact days, and that's me teaching aerobics. So they gave me a location. I started with 3 days a week, 1 hour a day, just me teaching. And when I left there to go to the Air Force Academy in '84, we were running 6 classes a week, 3 times a day, Monday through Friday, and 1 on Saturday. And we had up to 100 people every day come to our classes, and they were completely free. And so that was a huge benefit, especially to those military families that the spouses didn't have the funds to pay for a class like that. So the last day that I taught, we did it on the gym floor, and it was just one big, huge class. I had all volunteer instructors that were with me so they could carry it on. But we had 100 people on that gym floor on the basketball court. It was pretty cool. So I did that. I got promoted below the zone. I made staff the first time I tested. So I made staff. I put staff sergeant on. That's E5. I put that on 15 days under 4 years. And I went to it was NCO Leadership School at the time. Now it's NCO Academy. NCO Leadership School, where I was the honor graduate and, get this, the speech award winner. Yeah, true story. So once you start teaching aerobics where you're barely wearing any, like I would run into people all kinds of places, and I would be dressed in something other than a leotard, and they'd say to me as loud as they could, I've never seen you with clothes on. I'm like, oh my goodness, did you really say that? No, they used to see me in a leotard. So if you remember those, you remember the Jane Fonda days, that's kind of how it was. But it was a great time that first 7.5 years. So I left Chanute, went to the Air Force Academy, was the training manager in the hospital. at the Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs for the last couple of years of my time. And that was a great gig. The commander there, they had never had an actual person that was a training manager run their training program. And so it was a special duty assignment. I applied for it and got it. But they had never had that. They always had an additional duty person doing the training program. And when I got there, it was so bad broke, it wasn't even funny. And so I had to fix it. And I did. And before I left, we scored excellent on our inspection that we got from high up, the IG inspection. So that was, then I had my second kid while I was there, and I got out with her because who is now my ex-husband, convinced me that life was going to be great in Texas in 1986. How many of y'all were here in 1986 in Texas? How was the economy in 1986 in Texas? Not very good, was it? Because the whole economy was based on oil. And so his mom has property in Blossom, Texas. Anyone know where Blossom is? 10 miles east of Paris, Texas, where there were maybe 1,400 people, and I think they were counting the cows and the cats and the dogs. I had never been in a place so small in my life. I did not like civilians. I learned really fast, and I did not like civilians. Undisciplined. It was just, my whole mind was completely blown. It took me a bit of time to get used to not being in the military and being in this tiny, tiny little place. But so I spent the next several years, almost 20, not being a part of the military. And I worked in the restaurant business. So I spent a few years working in the restaurant business, running my last 11 and a half were with Applebee's. About a year and a half, 2 years of that or so, I was a general manager in Waco. I lived in Waco. And then I got promoted area director, and I had restaurants all the way up here at North Richland Hills, the one over there by Ridgemar. I was the opening area director for Weatherford. That was a nightmare. I went all the way down to College Station, Brenham, sometimes Round Rock. Just depended on where they needed me. But I always had College Station, which is really great because I loved A&M, and 2 of my kids went to A&M. So it was a great place to have responsibility. But I had Waco, Temple, College Station. Most of the time I had Killeen, which was at the time the busiest Applebee's in the state of Texas. So I ran restaurants, and in 2005 it quit being a lot of fun. And I was looking on military.com thinking, what is my military service worth? Do you ever wonder that? If you didn't retire, and you stopped and you thought, I don't have a retirement, but surely my military service had to be worth something. And of course, by 2005, computers were everywhere, all kinds of .com stuff. So there was this thing called military.com. And I went on there, and a little pop-up box came up, and it said, you think you can't? Maybe you can. Get back in the military. And I'm like, I've been out nearly 20 years. I wonder. So what do you got to lose, right? The worst thing, they can't take away my birthday. The worst they can do is tell me no. So I clicked on the little thing, contact a recruiter, and 2 weeks later, I was back in. So I had to go back up to MEPS. Now it was called MEPS. It wasn't called that back in the day. But I had to go to MEPS, and I had to duck walk, and I had to stand on one foot and do this and all this other stuff. And I'm with these 18-year-old kids. I'm 45. They can't hardly do this stuff. I'm like, how on earth can you not do? Okay, so anyway, I was back in, and then I started back out here at the Joint Reserve Base as a reservist. Got hired a little while later as an Air Reserve technician, where I wore the same uniform, but part of the time I was civilian, part of the time I was military. So it was a really great job, and then that quit being fun in about 2012. And I wanted to become a first sergeant eventually, and you can't be an art and be a first sergeant. Unlike the Guard, in the Guard, if you're a technician, which is the same thing as an art, you can be a first sergeant and a technician. But in the Reserve, you cannot do that. So I spent a couple of years at the Civil Engineering Squadron when I quit being an art. out of the headquarters where I worked at wing training. And when I got their program fixed and them through an inspection, I said, now it's time for me to go on and do what I want to do, and that's be a first sergeant. And that's the best job I ever had in the Air Force. Diamonds are a girl's best friend. So if you retire with the diamonds, you get to wear it in retirement. And really, you know, for those that may not be aware, what the first sergeant does is the first sergeant, by the book, is responsible for the health, welfare, morale, and discipline of the squadron. We are the commander's voice to the people, to the enlisted people, and we are enlisted people's voice to the commander. So I was outside of the chain of command. It was the commander, the chief, and then all the other people, and I was outside of that chain of command on purpose, so that when the folks came to me, I would have to decide, unless it was something I was mandated to report, then it was my time to take to say, I need to report this to commander or I don't. Because sometimes it was just they needed to share something and that needed not to get to the commander, but they needed some guidance. So I used to like to tell them, I'm here to give you a hug when you need it, and I'm here to kick you in the butt when you need that. And sometimes they needed it. And so I deployed 4 times, 3 as a first sergeant, and they were all really valuable experiences to go and deploy as a first sergeant because you really got to do the job. But I spent a lot of time on orders as a first sergeant, taking care of the base. And when COVID hit, I retired in June of 2020. So June 24th, 2020, because I turned 60 on June 27th of 2020, and you can't serve past 60. And so when COVID hit, the folks called me from the base, because anytime they needed a first sergeant, they knew I lived in Benbrook. I'm 15, 20 minutes away, and I always say yes. They called me and they said the commander of the Air Force Reserve Command, who happened to one time be my wing commander, General Scobie, he's wanted a first sergeant in every wing on orders for the duration of COVID, to be there to help the folks, because there was a lot of uncertainty, all the things going on at the beginning of COVID. And I said, well, here's the deal. I'll come out and I'll work, but I can only stay till the 24th of June because they won't let me stay any longer. So that's what I did. So the last 3 months of my career, I was on orders as the first sergeant for the entire wing to make sure folks were taken care of. And it was a great life. So how many in here are retired military? So a few of y'all have that behind you. And then a lot of other folks that did serve. So you know kind of what those stories are and how life works in the military. But that's my military story. Any questions about that before I tell you about roll call?
I'm non-military. What's the S in front of your sergeant?
The S in front of it, so I'm SMS, Senior Master Sergeant. Yeah, Don Graves likes to call it Special Master Sergeant because the Marine cannot remember that it's a Senior Master Sergeant. So he always tells people, oh wait, he'll say, she's a master, oh wait, a Special Master Sergeant. To which then I have to remind him, you know, my buddy Don, I'm having lunch with him right after this. Any other questions? But it was a really great life. Did you have a question? No. Okay.
How long were you at Carson?
I was there for 15 years.
Wow.
2005 to 2020.
In the 301st the whole time?
In the 301st the whole time. I was in wing training from 05 to 12. I was at CE from 12 to 14. I was the first sergeant at LRS from 14 to 16. They tapped me to deploy with the security forces in 16, and LRS was in a state that I felt like they needed a first sergeant, so I asked them to take a guy from security forces. You couldn't be a first sergeant in your own squadron. Your first assignment as a shirt we called it a shirt, you could not be in your same squadron as your first assignment as a first sergeant. So there was a guy in security forces wanted to be a first sergeant, and he wasn't one, he was additional duty, and I said, well, he wants to be a first sergeant. Why don't you vet him, put him in LRS, move me to security forces, so that security forces has me and LRS still has a first sergeant, because there was a lot of stuff going on at that time and they needed a first sergeant. So that's what we did. And then while I deployed to Kuwait, I was gone for 7 months. And when I came back a few months later, the functional manager who sits at Robins Air Force Base contacted me and said, I got a short notice, I need somebody to go to IUD in Qatar and be the CENTCOM first sergeant and senior enlisted leader. Can you do it? And I had gotten step promoted to senior master sergeant while I was in Kuwait. And so of course I always say yes. So off I went in 18 out to IUD, and I was there in so the actual CENTCOM headquarters is in Tampa, but the forward headquarters, if they have to bug out, they go to Qatar, to IUD Air Base. And that is that's people from Tampa would like pick them up at the airport, and the airport of course is air conditioned. And we pick them up at the airport. They came from Tampa, where in the summer it's really humid, right?
Yeah.
They'd walk out the doors of the airport to get in the vehicle and they'd go, oh, it's so humid. It's how bad it is. I ran the Air Force half marathon there in September of 2018. We started at 4 in the morning to try to beat the heat. By 7, it was already 121 with, I can't remember the humidity. It was insane. So obviously my slowest half marathon I ever ran. And I think it might have been my last. Can't remember.
How
But-
did you get involved with roll call?
So we're going to talk about that. I'm glad you asked, Jim.
I'm glad Jim asked.
Jim probably has heard it a time or two. So this is one of my favorite things that happened. I was the NCO of the year and then the senior NCO of the year for the wing. And that's my son in that picture when I went up for an incentive ride. So my son, my husband, and I, and my son-in-law all served in the 301st. Well, my son was in the 73rd Aerial Port, but it fell under the 301st. But I got to go up in an F-16 with Colonel Fuzzy Zeller, and it was pretty awesome. So when I found out I could, I did, and went on to do a lot of really fun things. I facilitated a course all over the country called NCO Leadership Development, where we taught E5s and E6s how to be first-line, front-line supervisors, and that was a really neat deal. I was teaching a class in February of 2020, and it was the last class I would ever get to teach, even though I had a couple more scheduled because of COVID. And that was a shame, because that was a lot of fun. And you do have a little bit of fun. You know, I had to do pre-deployment training, just like the security forces guys, so I got to shoot machine guns and fire a grenade launcher and do all the stuff they did. And we tried to have some fun at Thanksgiving and Christmas, because when you're away from home, you may as well, right? So lots and lots of fun. All kinds of fun. I was the 10th Air Force First Sergeant of the Year, and that was a pretty cool deal. Got beat out at the command level by a guy who was actually active duty in the reserve command. So all of us reservists were a little unhappy about that. And this was a neat thing I got to do. I got selected to go to the International Leadership Development course in the Netherlands, where we were with this guy looks like Prince Harry. We used to tease him all the time because he looked like Prince Harry, but it was a lot of fun. We were there with senior NCOs from Sweden and Germany and Canada, and I can't remember. It was 6 or 8 other countries, and we had a really good time there. That was an interesting event. My very last enlistment. So, you know, when you raised your right hand that first time, y'all that were in the military, you really didn't know what you were doing, did you? You did it, and you're kind of like, okay, it doesn't have that kind of a sentimental, you didn't get you choked up and teary-eyed, right? But this is me and my husband. He needed to re-enlist, and I needed to re-enlist because I had gotten promoted. Bless you. And so we decided to do it at Security Forces with my commander, Major Perea. And when I did that, I knew that was the last time I was going to get the chance to do that. And that was really emotional because I will never get to do that again. So it was a pretty emotional thing for me. And to do it with my husband was pretty special. And that's when I deployed to 18. In 18. And then we went to Romania in 19. Because, you know, we thought it'd be nice to just park a few F-16s outside Putin's doorstep and wave hello. So we did. And we did a lot of training with the Romanians, and our guys did a lot of training with a lot of other European countries while we were over there. But we did park 12 F-16s right there and say hello. That was quite interesting. And then there's the retirement. Me and Colonel Paget. He was my commander in Romania. He was the ops group commander at the time. And what he did for us, I think you were there. You guys were probably there when we did it at the luncheon. Yeah. But what we did was that because of COVID, we couldn't have the big, huge on-base retirement ceremony like we had planned and invite all of the people from roll call to come to the base. So I went to Colonel Paget and I said, "Sir, would you do me the favor of doing 2 retirement ceremonies? One at a roll call luncheon so my roll call family can be there with me, and one on base since they can't be there, but my family on base can be there." And that's what he did. So we did one at the luncheon, and he tailored his message to roll call. And then this message was different because it was not tailored to roll call. But it was really special how he did that for me. I had known him for years and years, back when he was a baby pilot. And then, what do you do when you have a whole bunch of GI Bill benefits and no one you can give them to? You just go to school. So I already had 2 associate's degrees and 1 bachelor's. And I decided I'm going to burn up my GI Bill benefits and burn up every penny, because with post 9/11 GI Bill, they paid for my school and they paid $500 a semester books and supplies, and they paid me over $2,000 to go to school. So I'm like, I'm going to go to school. And by the time I finished with these 2 bachelors at the same time, so I earned 2, so now I have 3, I had burned up all but 15 days of my GI Bill benefits. So I couldn't have done that any better, I don't think. So while I was in the military still, so somewhere in 2016 when I came back from that deployment, or I guess it was, 17, when I came back from the deployment, one of the other first sergeants had gotten a little bit involved with roll call. And one day he puts out on our message group, "Hey, I need somebody to go visit this veteran for me. I've been working with this group, and I'm supposed to visit him, World War II guy, but I can't get there. Can somebody do it?" And I'm like, "Well, where is he?" And he's told me where he was. He's in Benbrook. And I'm like, "I'm in Benbrook. I can do that for you." So he's a Navy guy, World War II veteran, Dick Bordeaux. Some of you guys might remember him. He passed a few years ago. But I'm like, I can go do that. So I went over there to visit him. They said, just make sure he's taking his medicine, make sure he's eating, talk to him. You know, just fellowship, just visit. And so I went over there, and Roy Davis, y'all that are part of roll call know Roy Davis. He's our museum guy. Roy, Army guy, Navy, then Army, retired from the Army. He is over there. And so he starts talking to me about roll call too. And so we're all talking and we're having a good time. And then they come back to our first sergeant group and they said, "Hey, the lady who runs this group, this roll call group, she wants to see if some of our first sergeants can start coming to their board meetings and maybe help get some stuff going between them and the base." And I'm like, I can do that. I did not work anymore. I was like retired from civilian working. And so I could do that. So I went to my first meeting, and at that meeting they elected me as the secretary, and so I've been there ever since. In 2017. Was the secretary for a while, then I was the vice president and the secretary. And then finally I was just the vice president, and then now I'm in my 5th year as the president of Roll Call. So what is Roll Call? And what I'm going to show you is just some pictures. For those of you who have not been to a luncheon, this is the luncheon we had Friday, this past Friday.
By the way, how many were there Friday?
Sheesh, with the volunteers it was probably 500 easy.
That's what I was
Yeah.
guessing.
I signed up 498, and I saw some folks that weren't on the RSVP list, and so it was probably over 500. So roll call started in 2014. There was one guy, Kevin Bolt, who said, he was an Air Force veteran, and he said, I want to get some World War II guys together so they can have lunch and just chat. Just get, somebody else to talk to, knows where you've been, what you've done, where you got that t-shirt. And so the first group was 15 World War II veterans. Today we have one of them left, and I'm going to show you his picture. And we honored him on Friday because he celebrated his 100th birthday. Monday was his 100th birthday. So Kevin Bolt brought this group together, took them to lunch, paid for it out of his own pocket. Then the next month they got together, they had a few more, because what do veterans do when they get a free lunch? Hey, you want to come to this free lunch? So the next month they had a few more people, and it started to grow. And so Kevin would ask people, can you chip in a couple of bucks to help pay for this? Can you? And eventually it got pretty big and got named and all kinds of stuff. So it just started out as a World War II veteran lunch, and then grew and got named Roll Call, because of course what do we do in the military? We do roll call. We do that many times. We've all experienced going through roll call. So it became Roll Call, and in 2016 became a 501c3, and has just grown since then. In 17, when I came in, we were doing lunches for 200, 250. We had about 500, 600, 700 people on our books. We probably had, more than 100 World War II veterans. Today, I think we have about 20, and 8 to 9, sometimes 10 will come to a lunch still today. Friday, we had 8 that were there. And of course, Vern, I don't see Vern. Where is Vern?
I don't know.
So Vern, of course, being our oldest at 104. John Wilhite turns, what is today, the 27th? Tomorrow, John Wilhite turns 102. I'm going to show you a picture of John. John does not use a cane. John does not use anything. He will not park in handicap parking. The man is a modern marvel. He served in World War II, Korea, Vietnam, flew 47 different aircraft. Every place he went, he'd say, hey, I want to fly that. Go ahead, because back in the day they would do that.
Yeah.
Today they won't do it. But back in the day they would. And every place he went, he'd see a plane he liked, he'd say, can I go fly it? And they say, sure. So he flew 47 different aircraft. It's crazy. So roll call started out predominantly as a lunch. Now we do many other things today other than a lunch. But that's what we started as. In 2016, they were meeting at Hurricane Harbor, or whatever they called it, in White Settlement. And apparently they stopped paying their bills, and all of a sudden they didn't have a place to have a lunch. And so one of the original members, Bill McIntyre, who happened to also go to Birchman Baptist Church, went to Brother Bob, the pastor of Birchman Baptist Church, and said, hey, we got this group. They need a place to meet. What do you say? And so Brother Bob opened his doors to us, and does not charge us for the facility. The caterer is Brenda out of Birchman, and she charges us, she was charging us $10 a head, now it's $15. Cost of everything went up, but it was $10 up until about a year or two ago. And so for $15 a head, she produces all the food. We do not, like I said, we do not pay for the facility. We pay for the tablecloths, we pay for the food. You know, we have some things that we have to pay for around the lunch, but we're blessed because if we had to pay for a facility also, it would almost be cost prohibitive because it probably would cost you at least $40, if not more, a head to do a lunch. So we're very, very blessed that we have the location we have. So this was Friday. So when you come to a lunch, first of all, you have to RSVP. And why do you have to do that? Because if we didn't have RSVPs, one, we would know how much food we have. Two, we would break the fire code every time, and we don't have enough tables and chairs for everybody that would show up. We would be at 600 or 700 people. We have over 1,700 people on our roster. That's a lot of people, and that includes our volunteers, and it takes a lot of volunteers at the luncheon to do what we do. So first, when you get there, you come in the door, and if you need a name tag or you need to fill out a paper name tag, you might have to stop at this table, but otherwise you stop at the table right there. You check in. They check you in, and you go on into the hall. These are we get folks to do our color guard. And they're high school kids. So we get them out of all the high schools. This particular group, Master Sergeant Lacey, the Marine Corps, out of the International Leadership Institute, or whatever it is up in the Keller area. But these kids are sharp. They are super sharp. But we get them. Trail Life will come. We get the Western Hills High School, Joshua High School, all kinds of different high schools that every month we get some group to come and do our color guard. But they're the young people because we love to have the young people interact. So you get in the hall fills up. It starts filling up at about 9:30 in the morning. We're trying to push that back to 9:45 so we can finish getting set up before people show up. But that's how early they show up so that they can visit. And then at 11:30 we start and we post the colors. We do the national anthem. We say the Pledge of Allegiance. So this is what you see. These young people have posted the colors. People are saluting as the anthem is going. Jerry Brown, one of our Korea era veterans, he does the Pledge of Allegiance every month for us. And that's very important to him. Gives him that feeling that he is definitely involved. And Don Graves this month sang the national anthem for us. You guys heard Don a few weeks ago. He's got a heck of a voice. Then we do the prayer, and our chaplain could not be there. He got called in by his commander because he actually is still an active Guard member. And so one of our volunteers, who's also a veteran, stepped in and did the prayer for us. So then we serve the lunch. And it is quite something. There is no line. You're not standing in a line, you're sitting at your table. And volunteers are bringing and putting a plate in front of you. And it is tight, tight, tight. Like you got to suck your chairs in so they can get around you. It's so tight. But they have a whole process the way they do it. And they start at the front of the room and they go back. And sometimes we can do this as quick as 10 minutes, depending on how many volunteers we have and everything else. And you see this room is packed. Yeah. It is as tight can be. There were 57 tables of 8 in the room. And then the volunteers were sitting upstairs once they finished serving. This is John Wilhite I was telling you about. And John's daughter Diane is a lady with the short hair over here that you see. We were celebrating his and Jack Dye's birthday. Diane is his daughter who still lives independently up in the Northeast, but she comes here and stays with him quite a bit. She needs more physical assistance than he does. So I took them to a ball game and I had to help her, not him. So pretty amazing guy. He really is an amazing guy. Jack Dye, I told you about Jack, our last original member, there with his family this month. to celebrate his birthday. He doesn't come as often anymore because his health has been a little bit more difficult. But Jack, when I first joined Roll Call, you couldn't keep Jack away. We took folks to ball games. We've taken them to the Cowboy Stadium for a tour. We've taken them anywhere somebody invites us, like every luncheon, every golf tournament, anywhere that people say, you can bring X number of people, we will bring them. We get them out of the house as much as we possibly can. So Jack went all the time, motocross, everything, and then his health just started to go downhill the last couple of years, and it's been a little tougher for him. But this is a typical luncheon. You see the banners across the back? Those are the people that sponsor us. So depending on their level of sponsorship, they'll get a banner. And we can't do it without the individuals that donate and the organizations that donate to Roll Call. So we have a few. So Jeff Owings of Owings Auto, which I think Owings Auto is relatively close to here. He has been a huge supporter for many, many years. And we're really grateful for that. The Arlington Lions Club, huge support, and has the whole time I've been with Roll Call, they've been a supporter. Just really amazing folks that make this happen. And we can't do it without the volunteers, and that's what you see these folks. You see Kay Harmon with her flag up to tell the people where to come with the trays, then the people that carry the trays, and then the ones that pull the food off of it. So you see all this. The guy over here is Bob Sparenberg. He is actually from the Netherlands. And he will be happy to tell you how blessed we are and how much he loves America for what America did for them. So again, some more of our folks, and just what an event. This is what a luncheon looks like when you come. So after we serve the meal, we have a speaker. And usually, so this month we didn't have technically a speaker. We celebrated Jack, and we had quite a few check presentations. So next month we'll have a speaker. He is a DJ in Vietnam, and though he was a DJ, he did end up in some firefights, and one in particular that he likes that he'll share. And Kelly Krieger, who is a professor at Texas Tech University, he is with the Vietnam Veteran Oral History Project. He will guide that discussion because nobody knows more about the Vietnam War that didn't serve there than Kelly because of his interaction with all of our Vietnam veterans. So he will do that. Mel right here is a World War II Marine, lives in Denton, comes from Denton every month to come to the lunch. We got people that come from Waxahachie, Denton, Frisco, Plano, you name it, they come everywhere around the place. And Don, of course, you all met if you didn't know him before that. Volunteers who are also veterans a lot of times. We have these ladies that come every month dressed up in 40s garb so folks can take pictures with them, and they just have a heart for veterans. So we do have non-veterans that come to the lunch. So what we ask the non-veterans, the lunch is free for veterans. Everything we do is free. Except for the non-veterans for the lunch, we do ask they contribute the cost of the meal, $15. And the food is always good, is it not, guys?
Yes.
Brenda does a great job with the food. It's worth the $15. So we ask that the non-veterans contribute that amount. If they can't, if somebody's bringing their wife and they just don't have it, then that's fine. We're not going to force them to do it. We're not going to tell them they can't come in. But if they can, so we have a lot of people that are not veterans that don't come with veterans. They come because they love the veterans and they want to be there and share the stories and hear stories and talk to them and show them their appreciation. So that's what these ladies do every month, is they come and they do that. And again, like I said, volunteers. The gentleman in the blue shirt over there, he and I used to work together at Applebee's. I ran into him again at Boomer Jack's. He's a manager there, and he's a part-time manager now. He's semi-retired, and I tapped him to control all of the volunteers that operate the food service, because nobody knows food service like a restaurant manager. And so he's thrilled to tears. He loves it because he is not a veteran, but he loves veterans. And so it means the world to him to have that be his job, is to do what he's doing now and keeping all of that coordinated. So we do that, and that's a pretty full room, would you not say? It is wall-to-wall people. Bill Henry, Vietnam, first Cav, his job was to go into the jungle in a helicopter and go down and pluck people out when they needed to be plucked out. He did that. We have Doug Peterson, dust-off pilot. The number of lives that guy and his crew saved is just immeasurable. When you think about the ripple effects to each person that he and his crew could save, that they could get out of those firefights and get to the hospital in time. Then they had kids, and their kids had kids, and just a huge ripple effect. And those are the stories you get to hear when you come to a lunch. And this day in particular, they had Neiman Marcus chicken, and everybody loves that. Volunteers, we have a bunch from the Daughters of the American Revolution. This month we had the Texas Rangers Women's Association. 10 of them came out and volunteered. We got a donation from the Texas Rangers Foundation at this luncheon, and they gave away 300 tickets to a game coming up in September.
Wow.
So our folks got to line up and get Rangers tickets if they wanted them. Just really a neat thing. And then we end, we do a little, we have folks that bring in things they've made, things that they've picked up here and there, gift cards, whatever they donate to roll call. Then we do a little raffle at the end, free. It's just a drawing. As people check in, their name goes in the bucket, and we pull out of that randomly names, and those folks win prizes. Doesn't cost them a penny. And then we finish with the service songs, and we do the whole melody. So when the person's service song is played, they stand up and they're recognized, and then we talk about the next lunch and send everybody on their way. And it's 11:30 to about 1:15 usually. So that's a busy hour and a half to hour 45. And that's a lunch. And outside of that, like I said, we'll go visit veterans in homes. I have a new one that just signed up. His daughter is looking for somebody to go visit him at home. And I said, well, where does he live? She said, Benbrook. And I said, oh, we're in Benbrook, 1.6 miles from my house. So I have a few that live within a couple of miles of my house. So we'll do that. We'll work on having somebody regularly go over and visit, try to get them to come to a lunch if they will. If they won't, then we just keep sending people over to visit. We go to retirement communities, go wherever the veteran needs us to go. Sometimes they need us to help them get a ride somewhere. We've had a couple of offers for some of our lady veterans to get cars from the Daughters of the American Revolution for those that are in need. And we do have folks that are not well-to-do, so sometimes people need a little hand. So that's what we do at Roll Call, and we love it.
Amen.
Right?
Right.
Yeah. So if you haven't been, I would encourage you to come. We have Town Village Crossing is a retirement community here in Arlington. They bring a bus every month. Vic Prince, I call him the world's best bus driver, Vietnam veteran. He picks up a whole group at the Pleasant View Baptist Church here in Arlington. They all meet there from Mansfield and everywhere, and he drives them all to the luncheon. We have a group from another 2 or 3 retirement communities that bring them in buses. We set up tables specifically for those. Those are the only ones we reserve tables for at the back so that they have their wheelchairs or their walkers and their caretakers all with them. So those are the only ones that we set up reserved tables for. Questions? No? Yes?
Move the microphone. You wear your birthday as well.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. All right, so I appreciate your time. I hope to see you guys out at a luncheon.
I'm planning on taking Joe next month.